Welcome, everybody, to a very fancy interview. I am blessed and I am so grateful that we have Cole and James from Nospūn. Is that how you pronounce it? Is it Nospūn? I always thought it was Nospun. I'm asking the source here.
You got it correct. It is Nospūn.
Amazing. Thank you guys. For those of you that don't know, Cole is the bass player and James is the guitarist. So we're very happy to have you guys here. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I just wanted to kind of start this conversation over with you created one of the my favorite records of last year of Opus. So like that in itself is just amazing. Thank you so much. What was it like starting off your career on such a high note? Like how did it come to be? What kind of processes did you bring into the studio with that? I know I threw you with a lot of questions there, so feel free to riff on it.
Go ahead.
Me first? Okay.
Go for it.
um, I suppose there's sort of two ways to approach answering it. For one, um, I mean, I guess we'll consider this the beginning of the career of
Mhm.
No Spoon, but we've technically been doing stuff like each of us individually and together as a band for like over a decade at this point. This is just the
Mhm.
point at which we decided to bring it all together under this name and um, sort of rebrand to create something over that felt new overall.
Mhm.
So I guess from that perspective, starting out on a high note with this particular project under this moniker, um, it was I think it was actually sort of something that we tried to prepare for
Mhm.
a little bit. Obviously, realistically, I don't know how you can be totally prepared for everyone to receive something you make super positively, but
Mhm.
at the same time, I feel like all along we were pretty proud of what we were creating,
Yeah.
and I think we definitely had dreams, and we certainly had conversations where we were talking about like we're so proud of what we're creating so far as we're listening to the rough mixes or the demos that we had recorded, a few years into the process, and thinking this could be something really cool. I wonder
Mhm.
if everyone will sort of appreciate it the way that we're appreciating it now,
Yeah.
as we're making it. um, I I definitely think we were still thinking in the smaller terms of like our city, which is
Mhm.
Charlotte, North Carolina.
Mm.
I think we were definitely still thinking like, wow, we could be making the 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 greatest record to hit Charlotte
Yeah.
in in whatever year we thought we might end up releasing it.
Yeah.
And so I don't think we were quite prepared for it to extend
Not even
outside of that.
close. Not even
Yeah.
close. I suspected it would be like a year before it would spread out enough for people outside of Charlotte to notice. So the fact that it took like what 2 weeks, 3 weeks, something like that, was shocking.
Mhm.
Very shocking.
Yeah, it's funny. It landed on my desk with a bunch of my reviewer friends, and each one was like, "You got to listen to this record." And like it was just like this domino effect, and each one just kept recommending it to other people and recommending it to other people. So yeah, I think it's across the globe because I recommended it to a buddy of mine over in the UK, and I know that they're just gobbling it up. Um, so um, I think one of the big appeals of it is the storyline and the concept of it. I would love to know kind of how you guys came about writing this concept and kind of, I don't know, almost like a Christopher Nolan puzzle piece of putting everything into place. How did that come about?
Say it. Say it.
I've got to give the context first.
Okay.
When
Someone actually made a meme about it on, was it Reddit or something? Yeah, I think they sent it to me on Reddit. Um, and they had like photoshopped my head onto the body of Dr. Manhattan, like a panel of Dr. Manhattan
Right.
from Watchmen,
Yeah.
with the caption, "It came to me in a dream," um, which we all got a really like hearty belly laugh out of
Mhm.
when we saw it. But it's true. There
Right.
was a um, sort of a particular time in my life in let's see, back in 2015, um, when I wasn't getting like a whole lot of sleep, or I was staying up late or something like that, or I was having some like nights of very little sleep. And so that when I would get to sleep, I was having these rather vivid dreams that I was remembering when I woke up. Like I
Mhm.
have dreams with some frequency, but a lot of them just kind of disappear as soon as I wake up. But these were like sticking with me. Um, and so I woke up in the middle of the night when I having just had one of these, and I was like, huh, okay, there's this house, and there's like this protagonist, and there's these other people I can remember, and there's also this weird sci-fi thing that sort of happens towards the end. There's like a machine involved, and there's time travel, and yeah, okay, let me just like punch that into my phone in a half awake stupor and see what sort of comes of that. And I remembered to check that note when I woke up, and I sort of remembered like, oh, okay, this is yeah. Um, I remember sort of how all of this goes together, and I think I sat with it for maybe a couple of weeks, um, because I remember thinking it was like there's a story here, but also at the same time, dream form, it makes zero sense
Oh yeah.
because dreams make zero sense.
Yeah.
Um, but there was enough like inspiration to be like, okay, clearly in the dream there were like some extra characters that only appear, you know, sporadically. They don't really need to be there. They're not contributing anything to the story. Like who has an impact on the story? What's sort of the overall conflict here? And that's when the real basic idea started to take shape. Um, and so around that time, we were, let's see, in 2015 or so, uh, we had we had put out an EP under a different name in 2014, so 10 years ago.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, and we'd played some shows on it. We didn't like try to. We didn't really do anything to promote it. To be perfectly
Mhm.
honest, we were still very much feeling ourselves at the like local level.
The same approach we took with Opus, I might add.
Just about, yeah. I will say we did a little bit more for Opus in terms of, like,
Mhm.
we had actual album art.
Yeah.
the
That helped.
the old stuff didn't have album art. It was just like it was barely like a Photoshop logo that we threw together.
Yeah.
But so we'd played some local shows, like you sort of do, just making the circuit around the venues in town with other metal bands and that sort of thing. And I think we were sort of looking for what to do next, because that EP that we put out, it has like 4 songs on it, right? We were like, okay, so the shows that we're playing, we're doing like 30-minute sets with those 4 songs and like a cover. You
Yeah.
know, we're like, all right, time to do something bigger.
Yeah.
And I
Um,
think originally it just came to me. I think at the time before Cole came to us with the idea for this story, we were sort of coming up with a different concept album.
Mhm.
I think we were calling it Black Hole.
yeah, it's gonna be a
Um,
more sci-fi.
and like I
Yeah,
think like that was like a couple of weeks in its creation when Cole came to us at a band practice, right? And then laid
yeah.
it out. And then we said, well, that's enough of Black Hole. Let's not do that.
Yeah, we were kicking around this idea of like a more sort of traditional Star Trek-y sci-fi kind of concept album
Yeah.
story. And then yeah, I approached them with the story and was basically like, I have a concept idea here. There's characters. There's a there's a there's some themes. There's a internal conflict. Um, if you guys like it, cool, we'll use it. If you don't like it, that's fine. I'll do a solo album with it or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I was just like, this is too cool of a concept to not use. It'd just be like a matter of finding out if they were into it, and they were
Mhm.
into it enough to go along with it. it was still quite raw in at the point where I sort of first proposed it to them. Um, Honestly, the story got developed pretty much over the entire time that the lyrics were being written, and
Hmm.
even into the vocal recording process.
Right.
Like there were multiple times throughout the vocal tracking process that Phil, our vocalist, um, would point out, "Oh, hang on, like maybe if we looked at this lyric a little differently, or if we changed something about it, it sort of gives a different meaning."
Hmm.
And so the story truly kept evolving all the way up until release, basically,
Yeah.
and maybe to a certain degree even after, because
Yeah.
we've just continued to discover these other themes that we didn't really even think about when writing the
Hmm.
lyrics. Um, so yeah, it was a sort of a slow evolution,
Yeah.
story wise, but I definitely agree. It seems like everyone's very much focusing on the story in a way that I don't even know that I would have predicted.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, well, you were sending it to a bunch of prog fans, and we do like to obsess over the story and the themes and the concepts, especially on a concept record. Um,
Evidently.
yeah. Um, yeah, one of the things that I really gravitated to this record, outside of the story and the themes, was like the influences that I could see that were being brought in here. And I know that, for better or for worse, they come with what I love about prog. Is there any influence that you brought into the studio that would surprise anybody? Like, there's the obvious ones that I think everybody can see, like the Hakens, the Dream Theaters, and all that. But is there any oddball thing that you threw in there just for funs?
Definitely.
For sure.
There's a couple that I think we've mentioned, um, like in a couple interviews on social media
Yeah,
before.
like this wouldn't be like a weird one, but for me, I think I brought a lot of influence from Genesis. So
Mm,
I'm a huge fan of Genesis.
yeah,
I love like classic prog in
yeah.
general. As far as like weird stuff that no one has guessed, uh, probably some Avenged Sevenfold made it in there, especially from
Okay.
Phil.
Yeah.
Um, and oh, it's on the tip of my tongue. I can't think of it.
There's honestly, I mean, essentially, so we've been, musicians since our teens, right?
Yeah.
And you build up influences across that whole era that
Hmm.
sort of become the culmination of your taste as a musician. Um, and so for me, that begins like all the way back with what I used to listen to in my parents' car, right?
Yeah.
Like 80s pop, right? Tears for Fears, Madonna,
Hmm.
Michael Jackson, etc.,
Yeah.
right? And then also for me it includes like movie scores from when I was a kid. Like something
Hmm.
about the
That too.
the the scores of animated films in the early 2000s and like late 90s. Your Atlantis, The Lost Empire,
Yeah.
Treasure Planet, uh, like all of these sort of animated films that came out around that time. Like some of them have like songs, like sing-songy songs and stuff, like the
Hmm.
Disney Renaissance kind of things. But the scores themselves are really, really worth looking at.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
mean, the original Lion King score was done by Hans
Gorgeous.
Zimmer,
Yeah.
10
right?
out of 10.
Incredible music. And there's like I have like a list of those scores that I'll still go back to and just draw tremendous inspiration from.
Hmm.
And that I have little doubt inspires like areas or sections in our music that are more epic
Hmm.
and like orchestral or like move in an interesting sort of harmonic way.
Hmm.
For me, it was horror films. I'm really big into horror films. And just movie scores in general, like Jurassic Park. I mean, anything Hans Zimmer or John Williams, um, or Danny Elfman.
Yeah.
is just really big for me. The weirdest one that I think made its way on here is, this is going to sound like a joke, but it's not. Is actually the Shags.
Love
You've
the
heard the
Shags.
Shags.
Oh, love the Shags. Philosophy of the World, one of my favorite records.
Y'all will get along great.
I promise you, I'm not insane. I must have, like, on like a 2.5 hour road trip, I listened to that like no less than 10 times in a row,
Yeah.
because it is so interesting to study. I mean, of course, it's funny,
Yeah.
and quirky and stuff, but if you look at a song like Within the Realm, the weird sort of middle section where I do like what we call the balloon solo, uh,
Yep.
there's moments like that throughout the album where you know we try to add quirkiness or humor. Earworm's another example.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many sections of these songs were brought about as a joke,
Hmm.
and then it just happened to stay.
Yeah, and I find myself being connected to a lot of these. Like I grew up with Weird Al, which is just nothing but jokes, right? But like the actual sentimentality, the actual music that's found around it is brilliant. And within a lot of that like jokey joke, haha fun times, you're connecting with something very guttural within you. So yeah, I think that comes across very musically. Um, I also made the connection of the Genesis as well as the idea coming from a dream, because that was where the lamb came from, being all from Peter Gabriel's dream. Um, so there's definitely a lot of like cross ideas coming through.
Oh yeah,
Totally.
Cole has not listened to The Lamb yet. I'm trying to. Yeah, I'm trying to push him into it. He's listened to Trick of the Tail.
Okay.
I'm getting there.
Yeah, you got to listen to The Lamb. Selling England is still my favorite album of all time. So if you can listen to that one or just Seconds Out, the live album is fantastic.
It is great.
Um, it's great. So there are whispers, and we've seen through your social media that you are working on your second album, the sophomore record. Um, how is that process going? How is it different than the first record? And how much are you able and comfortable talking about that at this point?
Hmm.
I don't. I feel fine talking about
Oh
it.
no.
Let's dive in then. Let's go.
Let's do it.
When is it going to be
Um.
released?
Next week.
Amazing.
No.
It's still a fair
It's
ways
still
from completion.
a fair ways. We've begun the demo process. I think we have 7 songs currently
Maybe
in
eight.
the works. Maybe 8. But for this time around, like, already it's feeling a lot easier because as of now we're not making a concept record.
Hmm.
Yeah.
We spent the last 7 years trying to make one come to life, and we just want to kind of not do that for a while. Just take it easy. So everything has been a lot easier, I would say.
Yeah.
Um, and this time around, it's more of um, a process where everyone can contribute, because for the most part on Opus, it was mainly Cole and I, and then our then keyboardist David helped out a little bit too. But this time around, everyone is throwing in,
Hmm.
Yeah.
and
Hmm.
it's been really organic, I would say.
Yeah. It's been a lot of fun. We're essentially, meeting every week at our little studio to just get our ideas out and get them down into sort of a listenable format,
Mm-hmm. I
so that we
think,
can listen to them throughout the week.
yeah, and I think as far as like what the music will be like, I hate saying this because every band says it, but it's going to be heavier. It's going to be darker. The heaviest thing ever written.
Yeah.
So like the songs are generally on the heavier side, but at the same time, we're still trying to strike a balance between the heavy stuff, the humor,
Yeah.
um, tr- trying to keep a balance of like prog metal and prog rock, which I think that's where we kind of fall into.
Yeah.
Yeah. I I think we like coming off of Opus, which like as a concept record, drawing influence from other like big concept records like Scenes from a Memory, Mercy Falls, etc. Like those same sort of like dramatic, uh, almost rock opera esque concept records. You sort of expect on those records to hear songs with variety.
Yeah.
Like you sort of expect to hear something more like lighthearted and uplifting, and then you expect to hear like something dark. Somewhere on there, you'll probably have some Phrygian dominant, vaguely Middle Eastern sort of sounding thing,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
there's just all these different flavors that you kind of expect to be on a concept record. And and I think that's sort of the focus of like, yeah, let's have this thing be very like extremely varied all the way across, which I think is different from writing an album full of individual songs,
Hmm.
because that I think can sort of come from a place of like, I think that can actually be a closer representation of like where the musicians are at in their lives at that point,
Yeah.
because at that point you really are just writing the things that you think sound good and that you want to hear, as opposed to this idea of like, okay, at this part in the story we need something that is more lighthearted, etc. This is more just like, here's a song, let's let it see where it goes. And
Hmm.
so it is interesting to see the direction that the album is taking. It's, as James said, it's definitely taking on like a slightly heavier vibe. And by that I don't just mean like breakdowns right and left.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean it's like it's a little thrashier in
Hmm.
parts. Like there's a lot of like sort of chunkier, faster rhythms,
Hmm.
more frantic
Yeah.
riffs, I would say, so far. I say as we really only have like maybe a two or three demos that are like close to full song completion.
Yeah.
I'm there's plenty more left to go to sort of see where the album shakes out, but there's definitely sort of a darker vibe. Interestingly, even though it's not a concept record, we have begun coming up with lyrics for some of the songs that are closer to done structurally, and I feel like I'm detecting like a common thread just in the mood of the lyrics.
Okay.
So I
Okay.
don't know that it'll be it's not going to be a story record so far as we know, but
Yeah.
it there does seem to feel there does feel like there's a little bit of like a conceptual thread,
Hmm. Hmm.
if
Like a
only in mood.
Yeah, like a thematic theme, right? Like a thematic
Right.
concept rather than a narrative concept.
Yeah.
Any plan for like a big epic 20-minute track a la Change of Seasons or Supper's Ready or anything like that?
No, not
Not yet.
not yet.
So you're telling me there's a chance.
That is something that I
More
absolutely
like
want us
1
to
in
do.
1,000,000.
Right,
That is
right,
something
right.
I want us to do in our career is do a bit like a plus 20
Well,
minute song.
I'll put it to you this way: it may not be on this next album, because so far the song that we consider like the big epic is like what 9 minutes long
Yeah.
ish.
Yeah.
So that's how that feels. I will say that I'm currently coming up with a concept for like a concept record that is just one song that's like 20 to 30 minutes long in parts.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, so there would definitely be one.
Hmm.
Uh, but as we've said before, like writing concept albums is hard, and writing long concept songs is
Yeah.
really hard because it's like the worst thing if you're listening to like a 30-minute song and it really does feel like it. So trying to make
Yeah.
it feel like it breezes It's
Yeah,
difficult, but we can do it. I'm sure.
there is a real art to writing songs of that length,
Hmm.
and not everyone, not every song of that length pulls it off quite right. It's
Yeah.
all about the flow, and if it
Yeah,
does not flow,
it
like
does not go.
Yeah.
yeah, like I mean,
Yeah.
my favorite personally in this category is Octavarium,
Yeah.
absolutely,
Yeah.
which they just celebrated, was it 19 years or whatever since the
Oh
album got
wow.
released? I
Brings a
Yeah.
tear to my
It's like
eye every
last
time I
week.
listen to it.
Um,
Jeez.
but I love that song, like the title track Octavarium.
Hmm.
24 minutes doesn't feel like it.
Mm.
No.
It flows so well from section to section. You can absolutely get lost in it. And at the same time, there's other longer prog songs where the flow isn't there for me,
Yeah.
at least, and it becomes a real chore,
Yeah.
kind of getting through those. And so that was, I mean, even when we were writing within the realm of possibility off of Opus, which
Yeah.
isn't more than 20 minutes, it's only like 15 or 16. Even that one, we were very focused on like, this has to flow. This
Hmm.
cannot feel like a 15-minute song.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so currently, I mean, again, what we have sitting in our Google Drive right now of our demos that we've done so far, like two have full structure, like chord progressions, all the sections laid out. One is almost there, and then the remaining ones are like the first minute and a half of
Yeah.
these different songs. And we're still kind of adding songs. Like only just this past week, Phil
Mm.
came to us with another song idea, and we are like, "Cool, let's
Yeah.
work on that." And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
so we didn't work on any of our existing demos. We just started in on this new one because, in fairness, the idea sounded really cool.
Yeah.
And we started in on that, and we're kind of letting Phil guide the vision on that because I feel like as the vocalist, he's expressed this to us before. It's a little harder to like contribute your ideas if you're
Sure.
not, um, I don't know, if you don't have like an instrument that you play like guitar or piano or whatever, where you can contribute like a set of chord progressions and
Hmm.
things like that. So he's mostly contributing melodies and lyrics, and then we're sort of figuring out how to harmonize those melodies
Hmm.
into chord structures and everything. So we're like, yeah, let's put some focus on that. We'll let you guide the direction because you don't really get to participate in the same way as much most of the rest of the time in the studio. His level of participation is listening to sort of what we're coming up with and saying, yes, that's cool. What if we change this a little bit, right? So it's mostly on the level of like modifying what we come up with. But this song we just started last week is all him, and we're like, cool, let's work on that, buddy, right?
Yeah.
And so I don't know exactly what his vision for that song looks like by the end, but who knows? Maybe that'll be the long one.
Yeah.
Um,
Never know.
I know
Yeah.
we're kind of
We want things to happen naturally. We don't want to get caught up in like this album needs to be this. These songs need to be this way. Like
yeah
the main approach of this album is, guys, I feel like I want to write a funk fusions song with a little bit of a polka texture to it. Can we do it? And then they would go, yes, we can and we should. And
Yeah.
then we just explore it and see if it works.
a lot
Yeah.
of that comes from having spent 7 years on one album
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
and sort of having what we sort of affectionately dubbed like creative constipation,
Yeah. Yeah.
where
Yeah.
we couldn't stop ourselves from coming up with new ideas, but we weren't allowing ourselves to work
No,
on them
no,
because we're
we
like,
Hmm.
we have to prioritize the completion of Opus. It's taken so long,
Yeah.
like we can't work on anything else until this is done. And so now, like now that it's done and we're working on new stuff, there's this really weird feeling of like all of those ideas just uh, you know, bursting forth, and us just trying to like figure out how to put them together in ways that feel cohesive. I will add a little sort of caveat to all of that. I feel like we're making it sound like, oh, we're just sort of willy-nilly writing whatever it is we want. And like, yeah, that's true. But at the same time, I'm aware that putting out a prog record like Opus with a lot of variety on it did appeal. It had a broader appeal, I think, to a lot of
Hmm.
prog fans. Like there
Yeah.
were the heavy moments that your more metal centric listeners could latch onto, but I feel like it also appealed more to your prog rock type listeners that maybe aren't there for like the chunky riffage, but are very much there for the the more progressive elements, I
Yeah.
guess. And I have seen other people get such listeners get disappointed when a band drops a record that is significantly heavier
Hmm.
at the cost of some of the progressive elements. And I,
Gotcha.
I don't necessarily want us to come out with a, I mean, I love the heavy stuff and
Hmm.
obviously I want that in the music, but I don't want us to drop that and then have there be this criticism from the more prog rock fans and have them be like, we just lost them to the metal stuff. Like it's just another metal record. So we are sort of going over the album with the idea in the back of our minds that like, okay, we do still want to explore the other aspects of our our influences and inspiration that isn't just the full tilt aggressive riffage the
Hmm.
whole time.
Yeah.
We want to put out a record that is, worthy of being considered the follow up to Opus,
Yeah.
but at the same time is um, something that feels a little different because
Hmm.
we're just at different parts in our life from where we were when we were coming up with the musical ideas for Opus, for sure.
Yeah. Absolutely. Amazing. So let's transition to more of the fun, uh, quicker questions here, just to kind of wrap everything up. These are kind of like hypothetical, budget not included, fun kind of questions. Like, if you could work and have anybody from any band come in to help you with a solo or some kind of a feature, who would it be for this next record?
Hmm.
Could be
I
living or
should have
dead.
prepped for that one.
Yeah, I know. I like to give these curveballs.
um, I no, you go first, James.
I was hoping you'd go first. I would actually. I think it would be really rad if we had a song where Phil and Russell Allen could duet.
Hmm.
Oh yeah, Russell
Yeah,
Allen from.
I feel like that would be great.
It would
yeah.
be cool to sort of hear them, a bead right next to each other
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
because we've gotten that comparison. Um, is that Phil has some of the aggressive qualities that Russell Allen has. Um, I feel like, in terms of like songwriting, it would be cool to have in people whose like songwriting prowess I respect. Um, this might be sort of like an obvious one just because it's still sort of in our genre and everything, but personally, I think Misha Mansour from Periphery is
Hmm.
uh, he's got a good songwriting ear. Like all the times that he's worked with animals as leaders on records, those records end up being
Yeah.
awesome. And
Yeah.
anytime he doesn't work with them on their records, I'm not saying those records don't end up being awesome, but they're it ends up being a little floatier, I think,
Hmm.
in terms
Hmm.
of composition. There's something very cool that I think um, Misha is able to do to get the song to feel like a cohesive, that flow that I was talking about with long
Hmm.
songs.
Hmm.
Um, uh,
That's a good answer.
aside from that, I'd just be looking at, for me personally, as an audio guy, I'd be looking at, like top dollar audio engineers to come in, not to mix our songs, because like I'm a control freak about that. I want to mix our songs,
Of course,
Yeah, yeah.
but
of course not.
like just to have as a like an information resource, like whenever
Yeah.
because like when I'm mixing stuff, I'll come up with an idea for how to approach mixing something. I'll be like, I wonder if anyone's tried this before. I would love to have just some info from, you know, from people with decades of experience in mixing,
Yeah.
to, you know, give tips and
You know,
stuff.
I will say, thinking about it more, I would love it if we could collab with a film composer.
Mhm.
Like
That would
like
be
could
cool.
you imagine if
Yeah.
we collaborated with Danny Elfman with
That would be
Phil's
very
voice?
cool.
Because Phil, he's a very theatrical singer. Like just hanging out with him, he'll just start he'll bust into like something from A Nightmare Before Christmas or
Mhm. Mhm.
Hercules or anything like that. And I feel
Yeah.
like that would be just a great mix.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. That would be a lot of fun. So this is kind of a double question. Um, if you were to ever either open up for a band or ask a band to open up for you, what would those bands be?
Dream Theater.
Yeah.
And that's certainly the that's the easy answer.
Yeah.
Open up for,
but
I
it
should say.
Yeah.
remains true. Oh yeah, we want Dream Theater open open for
Yeah.
us. Sure.
Yeah, you guys would be the headliner for sure.
Of course.
Yeah, yeah.
No, obviously we've been Dream Theater listeners since we were kiddos. You know,
Yeah.
since we were teenagers, just sort of getting into this thing. And what's actually quite cool is the Opus did lead us to well to at least meet um, Jordan Rudess from Dream Theater,
Yeah.
and he and I think also Mike Portnoy and the official Dream Theater page actually ended up following us on our socials,
You
which was
love it.
very cool.
We
So
Yeah.
screamed.
we're not assuming that a tour or anything is in the future, but we can dream.
Yeah.
Aside from that, you know, just our favorite bands that we like to listen to. Obviously, we love Haken. We love
Haken.
Yeah.
Periphery. Devin Townsend would be cool.
Devin Townsend,
to play with.
Leprous.
Yeah. Now, see, we are going to get to play with Leprous in
Oh yeah, that's right.
at Prague Power, which
Yeah.
I'm super excited for as well.
And Circus
Yeah.
Maximus. And
Yeah.
Pagan's Mind.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Just all of the prog bands that we listened to in early adulthood.
Yeah. And I mean, that is one of the good things about how tight knit the prog community is over in North America specifically. Like Devin Townsend is huge over in Europe, but in his home country of Canada, he can almost sell out, a 500-person venue. So I know that, they like to reach out to the smaller acts and get them onto the stage with them. So there might be a chance. So
Totally.
yeah.
Well, at least two of us are bald, so we share that in common
Yeah.
common with him. Maybe we can, you know.
That's right.
It's a natural marriage.
It is.
Side
It
note:
is.
I actually passed by Devin Townsend at the NAMM show earlier this year, and I couldn't help but notice his name tag said Dongzilla on it.
Of course it would.
He is just as zany in person as his
Yeah.
sort of online persona.
Oh my gosh. That's amazing. I love that. So yeah, this has been great. Thank you too for coming out and chatting with me. Is there anything that you want to leave the watchers with? Anything that you wanted to bring to their attention?
So we're currently working on the next album, but as Cole mentioned earlier, as a previous iteration of this band, we had an EP. This year is the 10-year anniversary, and we are going to re-release the EP completely re-recorded, and
Nice.
updated, plus a bonus song that wasn't included before. So that should be coming before the end of the year.
Yeah, just a little something to keep everyone's appetite satisfied while they wait for the next
Yeah.
album of new music.
Cole is re-recording a side project of his that you put out in 2016.
Yeah, I put out a solo EP in 2016, and sort of the same way that we feel about our 2014 EP. I was like, I think I can make this sound better. So doing that too, that could still be a ways away. I mean, I've recorded just about everything, but working on a bunch of other projects, so it's hard to find time to get around to it.
Yeah.
And then aside from that, I mean, obviously it's been more than a year, a little over a year by this point. But we released Opus last year, and it's still streaming. People can pick up physical copies on our Bandcamp. We ship them out personally.
Yeah,
So
I received mine, so
nice. Yes,
it was great.
If you order directly from our Bandcamp, there is a good chance that you have will receive a CD that all of our hands touched at some point, if that matters to you.
It's the personal touches, right?
Well, of course, and
Yeah.
I guess as far as content goes, we're preparing to release I guess you'd call it like a podcast that we did.
People have been asking us for the past year for more details on the story, and so we finally decided to just all four of us sit down at the studio and set it all up, set up cameras and everything to just sort of film ourselves having a conversation about the story, because some of us know the story very well, and others of us don't know the story at all. And so we're like, this is an opportunity to sort of use that to talk about the story, so people will have a resource to get much more of the details if they want them. Live performances. We will be starting to do live performances in not very long. Our first live show as Nospūn is going to be at the end of July. We're starting in Charlotte. It's going to be a Charlotte show at the Milestone, which is a local club here. And then we are also booked to play, as I mentioned earlier, Prague Power 2024 in Atlanta, Georgia, among a bunch of other bands that we love. So those are the big things that we can talk about at the moment.
Amazing. Well, thank you both for chatting, having a good chinwag, and hopefully we'll be hearing a lot more from you very soon.
Absolutely.
Yes.
All right. Take care.